Most people think a compliment is just a nice thing to say. They think it's social fluff. They're wrong. A compliment is a bridge, and most of you are burning that bridge the second you step on it. You either give compliments that sound like you're begging for a friend, or you receive them like you're apologizing for being in the room. You're leaking power in both directions. I want to show you how to turn your words into a tool of influence, and it starts with a simple shift in how you see yourself. First, let's look at how you give praise. If you walk up to someone and say, "Wow, you're so smart," you've just put yourself below them. You're looking up, hoping they notice you. That's not a compliment. That's an audition. If you want to give a high-status compliment, you have to be a witness, not a fan. Instead of "You're so smart," try this: "I noticed how you stayed calm when the data went sideways." That's a rare skill. See what happened there? You didn't just praise them, you evaluated them. You showed that you have the standard and they met it. That doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you an authority. It makes your praise worth something. When you are specific, you aren't just giving a gift, you're setting a standard. But here is where the real damage happens: when someone hands a compliment to you. Someone says, "Hey, great job on that project," and what's the first thing you do? You shrink. You say, "Oh, it was nothing," or "I had a lot of help," or "I stayed up all night, I'm actually a mess." Stop right there. When you do that, you are telling the world that your success was an accident. You are telling them that you don't belong in the winner's circle. You think you're being humble. No, you're being unreliable. If you can't own your win, how can I trust you with the next one? Every time you deflect a compliment, you are telling the room that your excellence is a fluke, and nobody follows a fluke. So, how do you fix it? You use the most uncomfortable tool in the shed: silence. When someone compliments you, I want you to look them right in the eyes. No looking at the floor, no fidgeting with your hands. You smile, you let the words land, and you say, "Thank you. I'm really proud of how that turned out." And then you stop. You don't add a "but." You don't add a "however." You allow the moment to be heavy. That silence is where your authority is built. It shows that you aren't seeking their approval. You're accepting their observation. It shows that you know exactly what you're worth. When you stop apologizing for being good at what you do, people stop questioning if you belong there. In the theater of human interaction, the way you distribute praise determines your place in the social hierarchy. Most people believe that the nicer you are, the more people will like you, so they default to adulation. They fanboy or fangirl over success, showering people in generic, high-pitched enthusiasm. They say things like, "Oh my God, you're so amazing," or "I'm your biggest fan." While this feels like kindness, it is actually a massive power leak. When you worship a result, you are implicitly stating that the other person is on a pedestal and you are looking up from the ground. You are signaling that their excellence is so far beyond your own reality that you can only react with shock and awe. This immediately creates a status gap. To the person receiving the praise, you haven't become a friend or a peer, you've become a spectator. If you want to stay high status and build a relationship based on mutual respect rather than subservience, you must move from adulation to observation. Observation is the language of the peer, adulation is the language of the subordinate. When you observe a detail, you are showing that you have the expertise and the presence of mind to understand how the magic happened. Instead of being blinded by the bright light of the finish line, you are looking at the mechanics of the race. Imagine a high-level executive gives a brilliant speech. The fan rushes up and says, "That was incredible, you're a genius." The executive smiles, says thanks, and forgets that person's name 3 seconds later. But the high-status observer walks up, remains calm, and says, "I noticed how you used that silence after the third slide to let the tension build. That was a very intentional choice." In that moment, the dynamic shifts. The executive thinks, "This person actually sees what I'm doing. They understand the craft." By observing a detail, you have proven that you are a person of substance. You aren't just reacting to a feeling, you are analyzing a performance. You have moved from a fan in the stands to a coach on the sidelines. This shift is crucial because adulation is actually a burden for the person receiving it. When you fanboy over someone, you are putting them under the pressure of your expectations. You are making the interaction about your excitement rather than their achievement. It forces them into a role where they have to be on for you. Observation, however, is a gift of recognition. It tells the other person that their hard work, the tiny invisible details they spent hours perfecting, was actually seen. Everyone wants to be seen, but very few people want to be worshipped. Worship creates a wall, observation creates a bridge. When you focus on a specific detail rather than a generic result, you are signaling that you are someone who pays attention to the world. And you are someone who has standards. And because you have standards, your praise actually carries weight. If you think everything is amazing, then your amazing means nothing. But if you are the person who only speaks up when you notice a specific, high-level execution, your words become a rare and valuable commodity. To master this, you have to train your eyes to look past the shimmer of success. When you see someone who is winning, don't look at the trophy, look at the grip. Look at the discipline, the timing, the tone, or the strategy. By commenting on the why and the how, you keep your feet firmly planted on the same level as the person you are praising. You stay in the low-stakes voice we discussed earlier. You aren't breathless. You are composed. This is especially important in professional environments. If you want to be mentored by someone at the top of your field, don't tell them how much you love their work. Tell them what you learned from a specific technique they used in their last project. This shows them that you are a serious student of the game, not just a member of the audience. You are reclaiming your power by refusing to be dazzled. You are choosing to be an equal who recognizes excellence rather than a subordinate who is overwhelmed by it. This is how you build a network of powerful people, not by looking up at them, but by looking directly at them and calling out the truth of what you see. You stop being a consumer of their success and start being a connoisseur of their craft. That is the difference between being a fan and being a force. The pivot. Rejection is a psychological trap that most people fall into under the guise of humility, but in reality, it is a broadcast of insecurity. When someone hands you a compliment and your immediate reaction is to push it away, to pivot the credit to luck, to the weather, or to a self-deprecating joke, you are sending a very specific signal to everyone watching. You are telling them that your success was an accident. You are signaling that you are surprised by your own achievement. And if you are surprised by your excellence, why should anyone else believe in it? High-status individuals, leaders, and those who command a room are never surprised by their own quality because they know exactly how much work, discipline, and intentionality went into the result. When you deflect, you aren't being humble. You are being unreliable. You are telling the room that you don't actually know how you succeeded, which implies that you might not be able to do it again. Think about the mechanics of the pivot. Someone says, "That was an incredible presentation," and you reply, "Oh, I just got lucky that the projector worked." You think you're being likable, but what you've actually done is insulted the intelligence of the person who gave you the compliment. You've told them that their judgment is flawed and that they are overvaluing something that you consider a fluke. More importantly, you have lowered your status. In the hierarchy of competence, those at the top expect to perform well. They don't walk around with an arrogant swagger, but they possess a quiet, steady expectation of their own effectiveness. When a professional athlete makes a game-winning shot, they don't look around with wide eyes as if they can't believe the ball went in. They jog back to the locker room because that is what they were trained to do. When you pivot away from praise, you are essentially telling your audience that you are a lucky amateur rather than a trained professional. This behavior also creates a social debt for the person trying to be kind to you.